You make one wrong move with cash flow, and all of a sudden you're looking at how we're gonna pay payroll, right? Welcome back to the Journey Podcast. I'm your co-host, Emma Jackson.
And I'm Jose. Emma, today I want to talk about a topic that is really important. And I came across it when I'm making the business plan for the special projects playlist, you know what I'm saying, the business. But I think it's valuable, and we should talk about it as two business owners, two partners, and you guys probably want to see this too.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, when is the right time to hire an employee? But check this out. It's not even when. Is what are the costs associated with that? What type of employee would I hire? And what is the ROI of an employee?
So basically the hard skills it takes to hire an employee or even build out a whole team.
Yeah, because as I'm going through this business plan, I'm pretty sure you guys, when you guys start your own business, you guys are going to create a business plan, which I really hope you do. But the reality becomes it's like, this is actually like a major part of me building this business on my side then to give it to you.
Yeah, and what I will say is there is not enough information out there that is stupid simple for how to hire a team. I'm going to put myself out there and say, when I hired my first ever employee, I was 22, and I Googled how to write a job offer. Kid you not. I was like, I don't know how to write a job offer. Who teaches you this, right? I didn't have an HR team I could hire. I was a small shop, with my family business. Yeah. And I Googled how to write a job offer, and I slapped that stuff together.
I don't think I ever did a job offer until we partner up.
That scares me.
To me, it was like, hey, this is the job. Do you want it? Here's the pay. Shake hands. You start on Monday. You kind of feel me?
I also think it depends on what industry you're in, too. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that works really well in blue-collar or service-based work. But when you start to get up into different kinds of work, people won't even take you seriously if you don't have a written offer.
Exactly. And from those businesses, there were more blue-collar employees.
Yeah. And we've learned a ton over the past several years, both of us being in business, about what it takes to hire a team or hire an employee. So here's a question is, I think we should talk about when is the right time to hire.
I want to give you my perspective, and then I want to hear your perspective, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be a little bit different because we're just different people. My perspective is I want to take a calculated approach on the demand of my product or service in the marketplace. Okay, Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically you're saying I want to launch something, see how it goes, scale up as
accordingly,
necessary.
Yes, because I'm really financially conscious, and I know how expensive labor can go when there's not demand to fulfill the product.
I completely agree. Personally, that's how I am. That's how I was with this business, for example. But if you are doing a business in which you already know, you're putting together a business plan and you want investors and you are building a pitch deck and you know that you are scaling to X whatever level, I think then you need to actually plan to hire a team immediately, especially if you're doing something like developing an app or, really building a startup.
Ooh, that's great. Because at that point, I'll say this, right? At that point, we need to make the separation of type of businesses.
Yeah.
For example, when you're developing like a rocket ship in SpaceX, you don't have a physical product to sell to NASA like right off the bat. You need to go out and develop it. So you need funding.
Yeah. And so that's, for me, the biggest distinction is, are you the kind of business that you can get by doing it on your own at first and then you can scale up? Or are you the kind of business that there is no way in heck you're going to get anywhere unless you have a team of people?
So for this conversation, let's bring it down to a service-based industry or a product-based industry.
That you can scale yourself.
Exactly. Okay. Not like building SpaceX.
That being said, I still think there is a time where you may want to start off and you may want to hire people. If you already know that you have a great idea, but you are limited in the amount of time that you can put into something, be realistic with yourself.
So let's recap for a second and let's backtrack at the same time. Right now, we're saying the same thing, right? We want to make sure that the demand is there before we hire the labor. But I like the point you made, and I think I want to backtrack it real fast to the business plan when we're coming up with the idea for the product and tie in funding to that. For example, there's different ways to fund a business, right? You could do it self-funded. You could do a capital raise, like we were talking about. You could do a leverage approach to like business loans or peer-to-peer lending or lines of credits or credit cards, right?
And at the end of the day, money, we know money talks, and money is the defining
But
factor. So many people say, I can't afford to hire a team. I don't have the money.
exactly, but I want to make sure that they understand and you guys understand this is because we've done this so many times. We're probably talking at a very high level when we're talking about the funding of staff members in a business or the product of the business. We're talking about the cash flow value. That means how much cash operational we have on hand, not credit.
Okay, so I want to drop a couple nuggets that I did not know that have been really helpful for me. Typical industry standard is when you hire someone, whatever salary you hire them at, say they cost you $70,000. Oh, and by the way, as a business owner, I did not know this. This is important stuff. When you give someone, say, a $40,000 salary as a business owner, you don't pay $40,000. You
No.
have to pay payroll taxes.
Yes.
You have to pay on top of that. So typically
Benefits.
So
Retirement.
so that $40,000 salary may cost the business owner $60,000.
It's
And
kind of high. Let's say 50.
okay, 50. So yeah, so okay. So what I'm saying is you have to figure out what your actual real cost is, not their salary. So say your real cost is $50,000 for this employee, they need to be minimum making the business 3 times what they cost the business.
And that's a general rule that in our industry we go by, but in each industry it's like a 1 to 2 multiple.
But you have to have that return on investment be significant because that their operational overhead that it's not always going to be a 1-to-1 value ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep that rule of thumb in mind because I honestly didn't know how to measure quantitatively. Is this higher? Can I afford them? And are they bringing enough value to the business?
Exactly. So we're gonna go tie this right back into the cash aspect of it. We need to make sure that whatever funding we establish and we get for this business, we have enough capital on hand to pay the labor because you can pay an employee off credit like you can with other manufacturers, right? I can go buy let's say for hair gel, the pomade line, right? I can go to Amazon, buy 500 metal containers on credit. But I can't take an employee's salary and put it on credit unless you do cash advance, which is a really, really bad idea.
So you absolutely have to have your cash reserves in place or you have to have the funding in place to be able to handle that. Because the worst place you want to be in that so many businesses, even the most successful businesses, you make one wrong move with cash flow and all of a sudden you're looking at how we're gonna pay payroll, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the one thing that you have to make sure you have together.
And from my experience, I've been in those situations and those are tough conversations to have.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, business owners know that if you ever get in a situation where cash flow is tight, you're the salaries that go first because it was your decisions that put that there in the first place, you know?
So let's backtrack. So funding, right? Mm-hmm. I think and I believe, and I think you nailed it. We need to have the capital on hand, whatever type of business
or consistent cash flow.
But we don't have consistent cash flow because we're still in the creation aspect.
No, but there are a lot of businesses that I know I want to talk to as well, and I don't want to exclude, that are currently running. They are operating. Maybe it's a single, or a small team, and you want to hire that next person, but you're not sure you can afford it.
So let's break it up. So that is a topic right here in the South, right? So I'm talking about in the idea stage of creating the business plan for when I know I need to hire an employee at this stage. It all depends on, can I make this job myself? And if I can't do it by myself, is it worth my time, my value to time with the market demand? On the other side of it is, okay, how can I grow the business? Does this employee brings a return on investment? How much of return on investment? And what's the value that I'm placing on myself by removing myself from the line of operations to let that employee take over so then I can focus on another part of the business? Now we got 2 camps.
Okay, now you've identified, yes, I have a budget, I have the cash flow, I can definitely hire this next person.
So the question becomes is, should that employee, whatever camp it is, should be an employee or should be a contractor? Because there's value on both sides.
Yeah, there are. And we've used both. And we've had great experiences with both W-2 and contractor. And we've had bad experiences with both. So let's do pros and cons.
Pros of a contractor is they're flat fee pretty much, and you hire them per project basis. So it's not an ongoing cost.
Which is great if you have an inconsistent cash flow or you have an inconsistent flow project.
Second pro, or another pro of a contractor, is a contractor's value for what I'm trying to say, a contractor's value will be way more than you can afford, so you can hire their expertise at a smaller scale.
That's very true. So say you want to execute this website project, this client comes in and you want it to be the best of the best. You may not be able to afford that. Salary may look like $250,000 a year.
But you can afford it for that project.
But you can afford it for that project. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Cons, you don't control them. They don't work for you. And by control, I mean, at the end of the day, they could decide that there's another project that's paying them more, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could always just not show up. There's not a contract for them to work with you in terms of, with contractors, it's every project you renegotiate usually.
Exactly. Another con, and I would say at the end of the day, is this: the cost. The cost could be a benefit, but the cost could be a massive downside.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's when you start to have that consistent work. We've had amazing contractors we've worked with in graphic design and websites, but when we started getting consistent, having bigger projects, we did the math and we were like, wow, if we now can afford to bring someone on at a great salary, and the project cost would significantly go down.
So for our business, I'm being very transparent with everybody right now. We work with contractors on a partner scale. It means that we're not working with one individual contractor. We're working with an agency that has multiple people working underneath them to help facilitate our stuff.
We have an exclusive contract with an individual.
Exactly.
So it's now in the world of the gig economy, there's lots of different ways. You can have a contractor, you can have a full-time W-2, a part-time W-2.
Commission-based is part of it.
Commission-based, and each one of those, go and take a look for yourself. Read into it, because there are tax implications. There are,
But you kind of already hit, like, at the end of the day, I think what people need to understand, what you guys need to understand, what we need to understand as our partners and business owners is, does a contractor make sense right now? Mm-hmm. For my particular financial position in my business.
Oh, and the other thing is that even a part-time employees have more agency. They feel like they're in it with you, and they might be able to provide you more support. A contractor gets in and out and does the job, but an employee can also be someone to lean on, someone to call when you need those, late nights or rush things or whatever they may be. They have a little bit more invested in, although they'll never have as much invested as the business owner.
No, and I
Nor
agree.
should they.
I think at the end of the day, for me, the benefits of an employee outweighs the cost of the employee, the downside of the employee. For the employee, like you said a minute
So let's
ago.
do pros and cons of having like a full-time employee.
Con, pro for having a full-time employee is, number one, you control the quality of work and control the prioritization of the workflow.
So if a project comes in that really needs to hit a deadline, you can say, hey, hold off on everything else you're doing, focus on this. Two, you can organize their workflow. So with contractors, you don't really get to decide, oh, hey, I'm going to come in here and tell you how to do your job, right? Mm-hmm. But doing it well with the people that you work with, you get to set up the structure of the way that employees work. Obviously, you don't want to micromanage. You want people to do things to the best of their ability, but you can come in and tweak. You can say, no, we're going to focus on this, or here's how you can become more efficient.
Exactly. And honestly, like cons-wise, for an employee,
cost. Because
not necessarily cost.
It can,
because if the demand is there, the cost goes down.
No, that's true. But we have to think about it in terms, like realistic terms, okay? It's scary to hire a W-2 full-time employee, especially if this is your first time and you've been doing things all by yourself. Because there's that unknown that you're jumping into. Someone's livelihood is at stake.
No, so my con won't be cost. I just thought about this. My con would be quiet quitting and hiring the wrong person for your team.
Yeah, because it is very expensive when you hire the wrong person. And wrong person could be, there's a bad culture fit, they don't have the skills, your job adapts, whatever it may be.
Because you're investing so much time and resources on training that person and getting them up to speed. And then, it might take, 3-4 months before they're fully trained sometimes.
And then, realistically speaking, something else I didn't know is that when you do decide to terminate a relationship with an employee, you have to pay the consequences. Yes, you pay into unemployment insurance, but I didn't realize how expensive it is to fire someone. So a lot of times I think in this culture of like talking about big corporations being, firing people willy-nilly, the reality looks very different for small to medium-sized businesses. It can be it's a lot of resources to hire someone. It's also a lot of resources to fire them. So no small business wants to hire the wrong person. No business ever.
Yeah, and let's clarify something real fast. When Emma's saying is, to fire an employee, there's a process you go through the HR process, the legal process, and then there's also additional financial consequences that can be associated with that. So hiring correctly at the beginning of the stage is way more valuable
for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
For everyone. So do you agree with that phrase, like hire slow, fire fast?
Not for me. I hire fast and fire faster because there's like little technicalities. If you fire, depending on what state you live in or whatever country you live in, there's different guidelines on, how quickly can you turn over a person before you have to pay into unemployment and all that stuff. So for me, it's hire a lot of people, give them a trial basis. If they fit with our culture, we like their work ethic, all that stuff, we bring them on full time.
I'm a little bit more about hiring intentionally. It doesn't have to mean slow, but you have to have a very good idea of what you're looking for and also what your team dynamics are and your values are. And then when you find that, when you know what your values are, you know where you're headed and what you need, just like dating, you can go through that process so much faster. You meet someone immediately, yes, they're going to fit into our team. And now do their skills match up?
So let's talk about the most important part about this.
Yeah.
ROI. What return on investment can an employee get you? Because I think at the end of the day, that's the most important part when we're thinking about hiring anybody.
Yeah, the reality is the business has to make money so they can support the staff.
And I love what you said earlier. And again, and I'm going to clarify this, is our industry. 1.5 is the return we want.
I'm just going to say advice that I got from a lot of different types of business owners. And yes, it is, I've no doubt it's different depending on what industry you're in, but I got advice from people in real estate and in manufacturing and whatever. There's a rule of thumb that
Which is 1.5.
That's 1.5 to 3, genuinely. Nowadays, because you're talking, genuinely, if 3 would be amazing. But we talk about 1.5 to 3.
Can I explain why? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so reality is this, right? Sometimes you have key players in your staff. When I'm talking about key players, these are the employees that are out there making the sales, that are executing the sales, are actually making your company money.
So I know where you're going with this. A salesperson versus a CFO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Super important roles necessary to the business. That salesperson, if you can get a 3 times in return on investment on them, which is what the industry standard is for salespeople, that can help cover the overhead of a CFO who is doing this really important work but is not directly contributing to sales.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, operational costs has to be balanced out by different pay scales, different return on investments on the employee, and then when you're making these decisions, you're not making the decision on individual basis. You're making what's best for the health of the company. When I'm talking health, financial health of the company.
And you have to be super careful that these never get out of balance. When I first started, I hired organizational heavy. And our organizational overhead was very high.
Expensive.
And it was super expensive. And we didn't have enough resources left over to invest in the sales and the growth side. That was unsustainable. At the same time, if you're totally sales and growth oriented, you need to have a plan for when they bring in the sales, when they bring in the growth, and you have to have the structure in place to either scale with them or to have an operational team that can handle the work.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we need to make decisions as business owners, future business owners, if you're listening to this. What's the best financial decision we can make for our business? When I'm talking about that, it's like, how can this employee, A, bring me more money by bringing me more sales, or B, help me fulfill the sales that have been provided? And then I can properly determine which one is giving me the best return on investment.
And at the end of the day, we want to have the kind of job that people love going to, the kind of job that we can afford to pay them great salaries, that there is work-life balance, all of that. And you know what that comes down to? That comes down to
culture.
High margins, efficiency, the stuff that we'll get into culture. But that comes down to the only way that works. You look at these big corporations, you look at, that are doing it well. Small businesses are able to do it well because they sell a product. They've gotten really efficient at their operations. They sell a high quality product and they have high margins. And what can they do with that? They can invest it back into paying good salaries, having a great atmosphere for work. And so you have to look at both sides and understand the quantitative problem so that you can build something that you can really take care of your people.
Exactly. I think the better work environment you can provide to somebody, the more productive they're going to be at the end of the day.
Because they're invested.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I think we should make this part 1, and let's do a soft approach in part 2. What do you think?
Yeah, and talk about all the other things that are so important for hiring a team, like culture and do they fit in with your vision? How do you know if a team meshes? How do you have those negotiating conversations?
Facts.
Cool.
I like it. I'm excited for this. So if you guys are excited, stay tuned to all the great episodes coming on this podcast.
Absolutely. And as always, please subscribe if you're not already, like and follow along, share with your friends and family. We'll have more episodes coming out soon. Thanks.
I did it again, Casey.